Right now, there is someone in your life you haven't spoken to in weeks. You've thought about reaching out. You haven't, and you probably told yourself it's fine, that you've just been busy, that they understand, that you'll get to it eventually. Decision is doing something to your body that no amount of exercise, clean eating, or sleep optimization can undo. It is shortening your life, not metaphorically, measurably, biologically, in ways that show up in your blood, your immune system, and eventually your death certificate. And the evidence for this has been sitting in peer-reviewed journals since the 1980s. We just decided not to talk about it. This is the science of loneliness. In 2015, a researcher named Julianne Holt-Lunstad at Brigham Young University published a meta-analysis. She collected data from 148 separate studies, tracking over 300,000 people across multiple countries. She asked one question: what kills you faster? The answer was not cancer. It was not obesity. It was not a sedentary lifestyle or a bad diet. Social isolation increased the risk of early death by 29%, loneliness by 26%, living alone by 32%. For comparison, smoking 15 cigarettes a day increases your mortality risk by roughly 30%. Being lonely is as dangerous as smoking, physiologically, measurably, statistically as lethal. Unlike smoking, nobody puts a warning label on isolation. Nobody asks you at your annual checkup how many meaningful conversations you had this month. We knew. We just didn't act like we knew. To understand why loneliness kills, you have to go back 300,000 years to the African savanna, a small group of early Homo sapiens huddled around a fire in the dark. Your ancestors did not survive because they were the strongest animals on the planet. A lion is stronger, a crocodile is faster, a bear has more mass. Early humans were, by almost every physical measure, mid-tier at best. What they had was each other. The group hunted together, bringing down animals too large to kill alone. The group shared information. One person's discovery became knowledge for 30 people overnight. The group kept watch through the night in rotating shifts. Outside the group, a single human being lasted days, maybe weeks, not longer. For 300,000 years, being separated from the group was not uncomfortable. It was a death sentence. Here's what happens inside your body when you are isolated. Your brain does not distinguish between social threat and physical threat. To your nervous system, being cut off registers as danger. Your cortisol levels rise. In short bursts, cortisol is useful, sharpens attention, boosts energy, prepares your body to act. But when cortisol stays elevated for weeks, months, years, it begins destroying things. It suppresses the immune system. It promotes inflammation throughout the body. Chronic inflammation is implicated in heart disease, diabetes, depression, cognitive decline, and certain cancers. In 2007, researcher John Cacioppo at the University of Chicago published findings showing that lonely people had measurably higher cortisol throughout the day. Not just in stressful moments, all day. Their baseline was different. Loneliness alters gene expression, upregulating inflammation genes, downregulating antiviral response. Your body, when it registers isolation, starts preparing for physical attack. It shifts resources away from fighting viruses and toward fighting wounds. It is running the ancient program. The problem is, nothing is coming. There is no predator. There is no wound. Just the quiet of an apartment, the blue light of a screen, and a nervous system running emergency protocols on a body that has nowhere to direct them. Loneliness actively changes how your brain processes the world around you. Lonely people, when shown images of social situations, showed heightened activity in the threat detection area of the brain. Happy groups, laughing friends, families around a table. To a lonely brain, these register as mildly threatening. The world starts to look different when you are isolated. Other people start to feel less safe. The longer you are isolated, the more your brain recalibrates toward threat. The more threat, the more you avoid. The more you avoid, the more isolated you become. Cacioppo called this the loneliness loop. It is not a character flaw. It is your threat detection system running on ancient code in a world it was never designed for. In 2023, the United States Surgeon General issued an advisory declaring loneliness a public health epidemic. Over the past 2 decades, the average American has lost roughly a third of their close social connections. Time spent with friends has dropped by 20 hours per month compared to 2003. The number of people who say they have no close friends at all has quadrupled since 1990. In 2018, the UK government created an entirely new cabinet position, the Minister for Loneliness. Japan followed in 2021. We have never been more able to contact another human being, and we have never been more isolated from them. Researchers studying longevity identified regions where people routinely live past 100. They called them blue zones. Researchers expected diet, exercise, genetics. Those things mattered, but they were not the differentiating factor. What set these populations apart was the consistent presence of deep social bonds. In Okinawa, small circles of lifelong friends who meet regularly for decades. In Sardinia, elderly relatives integrated into daily family life, never separated. In Icaria, the entire social calendar built around communal gatherings. The longest-lived humans on Earth maintained the social structures that your nervous system was built to require. Harvard University began tracking 724 men in 1938, the longest-running study of adult life ever conducted. They followed these men for over 80 years. Physical health, mental health, careers, relationships. The single strongest predictor of health and longevity at 80 was the quality of their relationships at 50. Not the quantity, the quality. Men in warm, close relationships at 50 were healthier and sharper at 80. Close relationships at 50 were a better predictor of memory at 80 than cholesterol scores. Your relationships are not a luxury on top of your health. They are a foundational input into it. Why, if data has existed for decades, do we continue to build a world that makes connection harder? Open offices replaced with remote work. No replacement for the casual daily contact. Suburbs designed around cars. Neighbors 30 feet apart who've never had a real conversation. Phones that give you access to every human on Earth and somehow make a full day without meaningful exchange easier than ever. The architecture of modern life is an architecture of isolation. They accumulate quietly until one day a doctor looks at numbers that tell a story your lifestyle never seemed to explain. Julianne Holt-Lunstad testified before the United States Senate in 2017. The session lasted about 2 hours. It generated almost no coverage. There is no pharmaceutical intervention for loneliness, no drug trial, no investment pipeline. The science sits in the journals. The data accumulates. The ministers of loneliness issue reports, and 300,000 years of evolutionary programming keeps running in the background of every person sitting alone. Your ancestors sat around fires and told each other stories. The brain you're using right now was built by millions of years of social life. It is a social organ. When it operates without consistent, meaningful connection, it does not simply feel bad. It begins to break. Treat your relationships with the same seriousness you treat your diet and your exercise. Person you've been meaning to call. That phone call is not small. We traded the campfire for a screen. Traded the group for a feed, but your nervous system is not fooled. It is still running the old program, the one that has been running since before your species had a name, and it is still keeping score.